Welcome to the Nairobi Health Show. I'm Dave Sherwin, your host. I'm here today with Gil Blander. Gil, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank you for inviting me, Dave.
I'm very excited to have you. I am very interested in what you're doing, and I'm sure our listeners will be as well. You have a very interesting backstory and a very interesting current story as well. So I'm going to take just a minute to read your bio so that people can get a feel for who you are. Gil Blander is an expert in the biology of aging, something that the older I get, the more interested I am in that subject. He has very practical and real world advice on how each of us can add more years to our life and more life to our years. He's the founder and chief science officer of Inside Tracker, an ultra personalized nutrition app that analyzes your blood, DNA, and lifestyle to help you optimize your body for optimal health. He has a Ph.D. from MIT. He's an internationally recognized researcher in the biology of aging, as well as achieving peak human performance. So Gil, thank you so much for taking the time to be on the Nairobi Health Show today and to talk about these things.
Thank you, Dave. And just a correction, my PhD is not from MIT. My PhD is from the Weizmann Institute of Science. I done a postdoctoral fellowship at MIT.
Oh, it's something else at MIT. Okay, let's talk about that a little bit. First of all,
Sure.
your education. What was it that you did study in your college studies?
Yeah, so I was and still, as you said, fascinated by the aging process, and that's why actually I decided to study biology. So I done an undergrad in biology and then a PhD in biology at the Weizmann Institute of Science. And then there I studied a premature aging syndrome that's called Werner syndrome. It's a very rare syndrome, mainly in a Japanese population, that they develop normally, but around the age of 20, they started to premature age, and the majority of them died at their 40s from aging-related diseases, so graying of the
Wow.
hair, cancer, and other. It might be a very good, or it have been a pretty good model for aging, and I decided to study it at my graduate study. Then after that, I moved to MIT and studied aging on a protein that might be familiar to a lot of your audience if they're interested in aging. That's the SIR2 family of deacetylase. It's a family of a protein that actually the lab that I worked at, the lab of Lenny Guarente, found that if you overexpress this protein in yeast, the yeast live longer. And if you underexpress them, the yeast live shorter. They also show that in worms, when you overexpress it, the worms live longer as well. And recently, there have been some data that show that even in some kind of mice, you can extend the lifespan by activating this gene or the gene homologue of the human. Also, I'm sure that you heard about resveratrol and longevity. So David Sinclair, which is a professor at Harvard, showed that resveratrol might be an activator of this protein and can, by that, help us to live longer. And also, I'm sure that some of you heard about Nad analogues. And this protein is NAD-dependent deacetylase, meaning that is activated by NAD. And NAD is it's a currency, energy currency for our body, one of them. And there are some studies that show that when you increase the NAD in the body, activation of SIR1 will allow, or SIR2 will allow you to maybe live longer. So basically, that's the background of my academic activity.
Well, I want to back up just a little bit more because if you don't mind, I'd love to hear about before your academic activity, because I think it's rare for a young person to be worried about aging. I shouldn't use the word worried, interested in aging. I certainly wasn't, although I probably thought I was at the time, but really it's the kind of thing that generally takes a little more maturity, I think, from my life experience. Could you tell us about your story growing up and maybe what was it that pointed you in this direction?
Yeah, it's a good question. And actually, I think that all of us are worried about aging. So I've seen it with my daughter that sometimes wake up at the middle of the night and start crying because she knows that she's not immortal. I
Hmm.
think that a lot of us have this point and then we forget about it. And I think that
Hmm.
what happened to me, I haven't, maybe my memory for those dreams was so strong that I continue to, to stick to them. But the event that made me believe that I should spend a lot of time on that was that one of my relatives passed away from a cancer.
Hmm.
And instead of being worried about her and sad about her, I become sad about myself because I realized that I'm not immortal. And then I started to think, what can I do in order to allow us to live longer, better life? How can we find a way to delay the onset of aging-related diseases and so on? And that's basically the reason for that I decided to dedicate my life for that.
About how old were you when you developed this interest?
It was around the age of 12, so yeah, it's pretty
Wow.
young. Yeah.
So this is really your life's work.
Yeah, I think so, and I have to say that I really like it and enjoy it, and have fun with that.
Okay, well, let's dive in because I really, you've got a wealth of information. Like I said, like you just said, you've been thinking about this and studying it and working with some of the best experts in the United States on this. Now, by the way, where did you grow up?
Israel.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
And did you get education in Israel and then move here for further education, or?
Yes. Yes. I moved to the US 20 years ago.
Okay, okay. Well, fantastic. And so, first of all, you have this app and you have done, I assume, tens of thousands of blood tests.
Not me personally, yeah, but our team
Your company.
analyzed. Yeah, we analyzed the data of a lot of users. Yeah.
And how long have you been doing that?
So I founded not I, but our team founded the company in 2009. So the company is around for a bit more than 12 years. And yeah, so I'm doing it for a fairly long time.
And you must have learned a ton, you and your team, during that time. On the one hand, I love how you are making biohacking very, very personal, personalized nutrition, personalized fitness, etc. And on the other hand, I'm sure you have found some general information that would apply to broad groups of people. And so let's start with the broader picture. Are there certain trends and ideas that have really become, strongly obvious? I guess is a terrible way to put it, but some things that you have found that seem to be somewhat universal among people.
Yeah, there are a lot. I call it the 80-20 rule. So if you go general, you can go to the 80%, but you cannot go to the 100%. So you
Right.
can. So if we are talking now about the 80%, there are obvious thing that you can do, or obvious for me. I'm not sure that it's obvious for everyone that you can do in order to optimize your body and live longer, better life. And those are eat less meat, eat more veggie food, and try to, if you can, go and become a vegan or something like that. Again, I haven't done it. Um, so that's one thing that you can do. Mediterranean diet have been shown to be a pretty good tool for delay the onset of diseases. Exercise, it's very important for us to optimize our body. But again, there are some people that are taking it to the extreme and exercising too much. So everything
Mm,
should be in moderation.
yeah.
Sleep is really a big problem right now, especially with all the technology that we have around us and the TV and the
Mm,
Netflix and the Apple Plus and whatever. We are spending too much time on that, and we are spending too much time on the screen. So definitely optimize your sleep. And some of us are saying, hey, I will go to exercise, but I don't have time today, so I'll wake up at 4 a.m. and go to a run. I'm not sure that that's the best decision.
agreed.
Try,
Yeah.
try to wake
Yeah.
up a bit later and have a good night's sleep. So I
Yeah.
think that sometimes our life is too stressful and we are trying to cut the only part that we can rest, we are cutting that to do something else. So we are watching movie until 2 a.m., which is also might be wrong. We are going
Yeah.
to sleep with this baby and basically receiving notification in the middle of the night, which is also not good for us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we are definitely we are eating too much, and I'm not sure that evolution knew that we'll have refrigerator next door and we can go to eat whenever we want. So
Right.
our evolution built us to eat a bit less and have also some gap between meals. So something like a caloric restriction or intermittent fasting is something that might make sense to do, and there is data in the literature that show that. So and a very popular one is 16 hours of fast and 8 hours of feeding. And that can basically there are a lot of things like that that you can do which are not yet personalized to a specific person. But then if you go to the 20%, then if you know that you have a low iron, then it's important to bring it to the right level. If you know that you have low B12, it's important to bring it to the right level. If you have low vitamin D, and we've seen it now with COVID that vitamin D is so important,
Yeah.
and still I would estimate that 50% of the population have low vitamin D and they don't know about it. So
Yeah.
that's important, and there are studies that show that low vitamin D make you the chance of you to contract COVID is much higher when you have low vitamin D. So I think that there are. Then you get into the 20%, and we can discuss about it for 5 hours. But I know what I can discuss whatever you would like me to discuss.
No, that was absolutely fantastic, everything that you just said. I guess I just poke a little bit harder on the deficiency part. You'd mentioned a couple of deficiencies. I assume that's because you see them on a regular basis. I think you mentioned iron, B12, and D.
Yeah.
Is there any others? Maybe I just see if there's any other fairly common ones that you see on a regular basis, if you would add to that list.
Yeah, so those are definitely one of the biggest one. And if we are for a second talking about iron, so a lot of premenopausal women have a low iron, and the reason for that is that they are losing blood every month. But also some of them are athletic active, and especially for runners, they are losing some blood when you are running because you have micro bleeding for your gut. So I think that for that population specifically, it will be very good to test for iron and specifically for ferritin and hemoglobin and see what's happening. We see around 20% of our population that have low iron and they don't know about it. The
Okay.
effect is very, very big because when you have low iron, you have less chance to bring the oxygen to your muscle and to your brain, and your athletic performance, but also your brain performance can be compromised because of that. So it's very important to know and to test for that. And unfortunately, today we are not testing for that. B12 is a specific to a lot of people that don't eat meat because we have B12 in meat, but also some people, especially in my age range, that becoming a bit older, um, the absorption of B12, natural absorption of B12 become harder and harder in our guts because our gut become a less favor, the pH become less favor for you to absorb B12. So some people need a supplementation for that or to consume more B12 in order to receive it. And again, B12 is important also for building red blood cells, but also for cognition. So that's a very important one. And vitamin D we already discussed. I can give you another example of something that both of us are male, so I'm sure that it's of our interest, is testosterone. Testosterone is a hormone that a lot of people, and you cannot see it. You cannot see that someone is low in testosterone. You have to test, and we are not
Yeah.
testing it. And a lot of people have low testosterone. They don't know about it. So first, it can compromise their sexual activity, but also it can compromise your athletic performance and building muscle, and also how aggressive you are. So some people that want to be maybe a bit more aggressive in order to progress in the career ladder, they cannot do that because they don't have testosterone. And we've seen a lot of examples of that, and it's pretty easy to test it, but currently the healthcare system is not routinely testing it for males. Yeah, I can continue about more and more biomarkers, but we are testing around 45 of those markers. And another good example is the inflammation marker. So a lot of us have inflammation. So that's not deficiency, but actually you have too much. And we are not aware of that. And if you have a chronic inflammation, that can make a lot of a long-term effect that can increase the appearance of aging-related diseases. So I think that it's also very important for us to test for inflammation and know what is the inflammatory level of each person. So those are a few examples of why it's so important to get tested. Then when you know that, what is interesting on a platform like InstaTracker, then we can look at your body or in a holistic way. So look at all those 40 plus biomarkers and tell you, hey, you have the issue with biomarker A, B, C, D, and E. And then in order to fix it, you need to eat more of that. You need to supplement more or less with that. You need to change your lifestyle and exercise more or less in that. And hopefully that will help you to optimize your body. Optimization of the body can give you a benefit, immediate benefit. You most likely will feel better, but also long-term benefit, because then if you do that, hopefully you will be less sick, and hopefully you will live longer, better life.
Fantastic. And your app offers a variety of tests, and they range from about $100 up to $500. So they're reasonably priced. And not only do you offer the test, but maybe more importantly, you analyze. I've done plenty of testing. I've done a lot of my own nutritional panels. And honestly, I get them back and I don't know what some of the things are. And I don't dive in and really try to understand it. And so what I really like about what you're doing is taking it to that next level. It's one thing to get a great test done. It's a whole other thing to learn what exactly you do with that information.
Yeah, I completely agree. And I think that it's very hard for someone that doesn't have a Ph.D. in biology to understand all the acronym of ALT, AST, GGT, and so on. Most of us don't understand even what is that. And then what should we do with that?
Right.
And so I think that what we are trying to do is to take the data. And by the way, you can test with us, but you can also bring data from your primary care physician and upload it into our app. And then based on that, we'll explain to you what are the issues. And then we'll help you to build an action plan. What are the interventions that you would like to do? And you can come and say, hey, InstaTracker told me to eat avocado, but I don't like avocado. Okay, there is something else that you can do. Or InstaTracker told me to take supplement, but I really against supplement. Most likely we'll find a way to get the benefit with food and maybe some lifestyle changes. So we are giving you a lot of flexibility. What should you do in order to optimize your body?
And how much do you give? I see nutrition mentioned on your website. I see advice on supplementation, as you just mentioned. And so does this, and you mentioned it might recommend avocados. So how does it work? Does it give you kind of a punch list? Like, here are some foods to add to your diet, or does it give you like meal plans, or how do you deliver the information?
Yeah, so let's talk a bit about the process. So let's assume that you order a panel from us. You can either upload your result if you have it, or go to Quest Diagnostic, or we will send a phlebotomist to your home, or if you want, we can send a home kit to your home and you'll prick your finger. Then we'll receive the data. And during that time, we'll ask you some question about you, some demographic information, age, gender, ethnicity, and so on. Some question about your supplementation, what supplement you take. Some question about nutrition, what food do you eat, what beverages do you drink, how do you exercise, what do you do in your lifestyle. We also connected to Fitbit and Apple Watch and Garmin. So we can learn a lot about how do you sleep and how is your resting heart rate and when you exercise and so on. So, and on top of that, we also, if you have data, we can tell you a bit about your genetics and about your potential. So basically, we have a lot of inputs. And based on all of that, we are pushing that into our expert system that run all of that and try to feed the best intervention that we have in our expert system, that all of them are based on the peer-reviewed studies. And then we are spitting out around 10 interventions that we think that are best for you. And then you can come and decide, do I want to do all the 10? Do I want to do only a few of them? Because again, I don't like avocado. And if you are a really type A person, you can even add more. So we can give you even 20 interventions if you really want. We are not recommending it, but you can do that. So basically, we are extracting the 10 best interventions for you out of around 4,000 different interventions. Wow. And explaining to you why they are good, also giving you some tips how to incorporate them. If you, for example, your intervention is a supplement, we will give you a few options of brands that have this supplement that our nutritionist found that they are a good quality. Again, we are not selling supplement. We want to stay Switzerland, so we are not telling you, hey, take this supplement. We are not making money from any supplement that you are buying, but we want to give you a service, so we're giving you a few options. We will also tell you in food, when to eat it, how much to eat it, how many times a week, and so on. So we are giving you a lot of information that you can incorporate into your daily lifestyle to allow you to optimize your body.
Yeah, and so far, speaking of supplements, I mean, I don't know if you're aware, Dirobi is a supplement company, and I've been very happy with a lot of the things you said. This is our multi, and we have vitamin D, we have a little bit of iron, we have resveratrol, we have vitamin B. And so as you've been talking, I've been sitting and feeling very happy about our formulation, because we literally designed, you'll notice a lot of multis have many, many ingredients. I know you can't read this, but I'm just trying to show there's not a ton of ingredients here. One of the things that we do, I'm a nutrition coach, and we lead with food. If I'm personally coaching someone, I want to find out first what they're eating. Even though we're a supplement seller, we keep supplements in the realm they belong, which is supplemental to diet. And even my own biohacking. My last test, I wasn't deficient, but I was low in 4 minerals. I was low in selenium, potassium, calcium, and magnesium. And I didn't buy a single supplement for those 4. Instead, I raised my level of green leafy vegetables. I bought some cashew nuts and had a small handful every day. And so I bought the foods that were high in those things, and I tried to eat a banana every day, which is to raise the potassium. And so as a supplement company, we're trying to create the supplements that we have found from people like yourself, from the science, what is really hard to raise through diet. And I know this through my own experience and through many studies, that there are just some things are really difficult to raise through nutrition, but it's certainly a great way to try it first, to go to your nutrition. And especially, let's face it, Gil, most people really have a bad diet. The average diet is not a good diet in the United States.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And I like to tell the following story, that if you think about, if you look at the USDA catalog, you see that we have 8,000 different food items available for us. Okay, 8,000. It's a huge universe. If you will do a recall for a random person on the street and ask him, tell us every day, every minute that you eat something, log it. And then you look after a week, you will see that on average, the person will consume 20 different food items. Okay, so we have, he is consuming like that, and the universe is 8,000. Okay, so I think that we have a few problems here. First is an education. You have so many, you have an ocean of food items, and you consume very little. And the second problem is that I'm not sure that you eat the right food for you. So I think that doing something like Instant Tracker will allow you to first find the 20 that are good for you, but also expose you to other options that you never thought about it because you didn't know. So I think that that's something that it's a big problem right now, that we really eat too little variety, and we should improve it.
Fantastic point. I want to jump to an earlier point that you made and poke just a little bit at it. Maybe even it'll sound a little bit debative, but
Sure.
is that a word, or did I just make that up? You mentioned cutting down on meat. Now, I am absolutely agree with you that we eat too much meat. On the other hand, there's this paradox that when we study the blue zones and the centenarians, people living over 100 years old, we don't find many vegetarians or vegans. They tend to eat a little bit of meat. And the other thing that you pointed out that I thought was so critical was overall, they eat less calories than average. We
Yeah.
tend to eat too much food. But I do find it interesting that in centenarian studies, both in Russia and in Loma Linda and Japan, et cetera, that there is a little bit of meat in those diets. Um, and so you did kind of recommend a vegan lifestyle, which you haven't adopted, and neither have I. But I kind of wonder whether I really need to, or whether I should actually just manage the meat and not eat too much.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So let's start with why those people live longer and they still eat meat. I can give you an example that there are some centenarian that you can find them still smoking at the age of 100 and saying, and you ask them, why do you smoke? And they will say, hey, it didn't kill me until now, so I will continue to smoke. So,
Yeah.
they are so rare that it's basically somehow they survive. So they have a good genes or something like that.
Yeah.
But in general, there is a lot of data that show that meat is okay for us to eat, but I think that we are eating too much. We haven't been,
Yeah.
the evolution haven't been created us to eat steak every lunch and every dinner. So
Yeah.
even for someone like you and me, that yeah, I like meat. It's tasty. It's fun. It's part of the fun of life. I, what is a long life without having fun? Everyone should have fun. But
Right.
we don't need to eat meat every day. So instead of eating meat 7 days a week, try to eat it 6 days a week, and then 5 days a week, and maybe once a week. That might be okay for you. So everyone need to find his own balance. But the bottom line is that there are so many peer-reviewed scientific papers that show that people that don't eat meat have a much better biomarkers, a much better
Okay.
quality of life. So that's the bottom line. But yeah, everyone is different. And let me give you an example. If you don't have a problem with some markers like I don't know lipids and other, maybe meat is better for you than someone that have an issue with the lipids. So I think that it's also a matter of balance based on the issues that you have. Everyone have a different issue, especially if you look at the fact that we are testing so many blood biomarkers. So it's very hard for me to say, hey, Dave, you shouldn't eat that without knowing exactly what's happening inside your body.
Okay. Fair clarification. I'm glad I brought that up, and that's a good answer. Well, Gil, this has been fantastic, and I appreciate you coming on the show. And for listeners, I'm a big fan of what you're doing. Even I'm not a customer yet, but I do have a recent blood test that I'm going to upload to the site. I created my account this morning. It's insidetracker.com. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. And at the site, for those of you listening, you can go there and you can open an account as I did. And if you don't have a recent blood test, no worries. They'll do that for you, as Gil mentioned. And by the way, Gil, I guess just one more question on that. The general test that the doctor does in the yearly physical, is that enough? Or if they went for your test, would they get more and better information?
Yeah, so the test in the physical give you the basics. So, for example, you want to receive data about testosterone or data about vitamin B12 or vitamin D or cortisol, which is a stress hormone. But I think that it's a good enough starting point. So I would say if you
Okay.
have a test, start with that. It's less expensive, and use that and see if you like it or not. And if then you want to go a bit more broader and understand your body completely, then go to the next level and buy the full test from us that's called Ultimate.
That sounds good. And it's a great idea. It's just a great idea. To me, these bodies that we have, Gil, they are absolutely miraculous. When I think of the trillions of cells in the body and how we self-heal and that we can see and hear, there's not a day goes by that I'm not amazed at this gift that we have. And at the same time, I have friends in my own life that take better care of their trucks than they do of their bodies.
Yeah,
Their maintenance.
I completely agree with you. Your body is the most sophisticated and complex machine that you have. And you gave a good example of the truck. Don't give it the low-grade gasoline. Give your body the best grade gasoline,
Yeah.
and take it to the technician every few months that basically do the insert tracker. And then you have a better chance that your truck will live longer and you won't need to replace it. So 100% with you.
Fantastic. Well, with that, I think that's a great closing thought for us, Gil, unless you have anything else you'd like to add before I let you go.
No, that was great. Thank you so much, Dave.
Okay, and for everyone listening, it's insidetracker.com where you can get test results. If you haven't had a blood test in a while and you don't know what's going on inside your body, this is a fantastic way to figure that out. And then to find out not only what is going on, but what to do about it. And some of the foods you ought to eat, some of the supplements you ought to take. So, Gil, I think you're doing a fantastic thing and appreciate you coming on the show to share it with us.
Thank you so much, and have an excellent day.
You too. And for those of you listening, this is Dave Sherwin wishing you health and success.